Okay, so here we are in part 2. Everyone's gone outside, and we start off again with a large group of construction workers walking in a daze, as though again they're being controlled by the music. They make their way up to this platform where a giant screen sits, and once they get up there, the workers start climbing up the wall and removing rock to form this tunnel. Now, there were a few videos I saw where they were speculating that this was the rock of Christ, but I didn't really catch the evidence for that. I'm just not sure the symbolism was there to make a claim like that. Honestly, it's part 2 that gets really weird. Instead of opening a tunnel, they seem to open up a portal, and they perform this ritualistic dance in order to open it up. One thing a few people noted was as the tunnel opened up, the workers started removing their clothes, which could symbolize a corruption of their minds. Like right and wrong doesn't exist the more they open this portal, which does seem to happen. As the tunnel opens, eventually people dress similarly to how they did when they were in the hellish realm from part 1. Eventually the music takes over again, and the people seem hypnotized and controlled, but after this is where things get really interesting. It looks like some sort of voluntary human sacrifice happens. These 3 men climb up into the tunnel and hang themselves until they're dead, and then there's this animation on the screen of the 3 workers being hurled down the tunnel as these giant demonic hands grab at them. Did I mention too that the music is really setting the tone for all this as well? It just kind of blew me away how organized all this was. It's at this point that the 3 men who sacrifice themselves turn into 3 spirits and float above the scene with an all-seeing eye, and a group of followers underneath who grab their long horns and start playing. And right after this, Satan returns. And at this point, it kind of makes sense why the first half of this performance was inside. It could have been a metaphor for Satan leaving his world and entering ours, which, what the hell? This whole show is just straight up weird. This isn't some sideshow, this was the opening ceremony for a train tunnel. And right after Satan comes, you have these demonic creatures again, and those 3 men who turned into 3 ghosts now seem to have reincarnated into 3 scarabs. Maybe they were all never the same thing, but the number 3 shows up a lot in this video. The goat man, who we suspect is Satan, then proceeds to have sex with a fallen angel or a woman of some sort, and then for a while it's nothing but chaos. Now, this we saw before with the man in the tunnel singing for Satan. Now we have a woman singing for Satan, and his new followers are bringing upside down trees as offerings again. I honestly don't know what to make of this next part. Perhaps it symbolizes materialism or the arrival of a new world Satan made. Perhaps it's demonstrating a distancing from living harmoniously with nature. It's kind of really up to your own interpretation, honestly. What seems to be Satan's bride enters the stage with a pregnant belly and another young goat-headed man, and this kind of becomes a mess of chaotic representation of a modern world. They even put political heads in suits and walked them down the aisle that Satan was on. And at the end, we have a happy little melody. People are singing and rejoicing over the new tunnel. One thing that caught my eye was time spinning out of control. This whole ceremony reminds me of what I read from Roman celebrations or depictions of ancient civilizations that predicted the future to be an evil, materialistically driven, chaotic one, where people will lose touch with themselves so much that they can no longer think for themselves and are led by evil without even realizing it had taken them. Then, just like nothing happened, at the very end, everyone's happy and celebrates the tunnel and goes home. Now, I want to take a couple minutes to give my take on this. I've watched a few videos from others across the internet, and people seem to take it way too far no matter what side they were on. For example, apparently if you're familiar with CERN, then this makes sense. CERN is located in Switzerland, and they work with what some have named evil particles that could rip a hole in our dimension and let demons in or completely collapse our universe entirely. And that's more than fine to think about, but firstly, is there any science at all that these demons can pass through particles or even large hadron colliders? And even if demons existed and they could pass through, what's the evidence that they could corrupt a human mind beyond biblical text? Also, the ceremony didn't seem to have anything to do with CERN at all. At least, there wasn't anything I saw that represented CERN. Not that it seemed to represent a train tunnel either, but I want to move away from the radical ideas, which is kind of why I'm covering them first. Another idea that was very popular around the internet had to do with, of course, religion. That this ceremony was in fact a call to Satan, and the train tunnel was just a way to perform this ceremony without too many questions. Some of the evidence brought up for this went like this. There are 600 people who performed in the ceremony. This ceremony also took place in 2016, and it took place in June, which is the 6th month. So people were drawing Half-Life 3 connections because they caught 3 6s together. There were a few people out there who believed the ceremony was real, that Satan had really taken the minds of people and turned them against God, or somehow has taken control of all those in power and is leading them to the destruction of the earth, tearing up the Alps in defiance of God's creation. I mean, in the end here, they do have Satan giving birth to corrupt government officials. Honestly, if this ceremony was intended to be taken seriously, to really call Satan out of the abyss, I'd be far less intrigued by it. I mean, really? You honestly think that a display like this is going to do anything? That'd be like when the Mormons wrote Anne Frank's name in their book and claimed that it now made her a member of their church. Why would your superstition be any more real than a belief in Santa Claus? Good luck getting the devil here is all I'm saying. But my question is, if all these people wanted was to perform a cultic ceremony, why wouldn't they just do it? Why would they need to tell everybody? They wouldn't need to be so open about this and perform it in front of an audience for a train tunnel, and to me it feels more like a performance than a demonic cultic ceremony. Though they did do a really good job at making it seem legit. The big problem with that though is that not many people did see this. There's not many views on these videos, which to me is kind of weird. To have such a hype behind this tunnel, to have it be all over the news, but the ceremony didn't seem to be covered as much? That to me is kind of strange, which leads us into another theory that I've heard across the internet. This performance could instead be a story, which is why some people believe that this is a cult, that this is some sort of secret or hidden story about our world and why it is the way it is. Switzerland's also a very powerful country, they're very rich, which had people worried, but I feel like I have a much more grounded idea when it comes to all of this. It could be that someone had a lot of money and hired an artist that was really out there and told him that the ceremony was for the deepest tunnel, go nuts. And in his head, he thought of hell and just went nuts with it. If you held a gun to my head and told me to explain this to you, I'd say that someone gave a lot of money to an artist. That artist may not have agreed with the tunnel. Perhaps he felt humans tearing through the Alps to make travel more convenient was a bit too hubristic, so he represented these political figures and builders as brainwashed spawns of Satan who transformed the peaceful, harmonized world into a mechanical, hubristic, materialistic hell. I do have an example of someone who watched this video and went a little too far with it.
You don't just do this for the sake of it. There's no reason for it, especially when there's such an evil thread running throughout this. Torture, demon possession, animalistic ritualism. It goes on and on. So when you watch this, one has to ask, how far away are we from literal human sacrifice in the world we live in, when we are representing that, we are mimicking that within a ritual like this? We're not far away, are we? Even human cannibalism in a ceremony like this. We've now set the foundation for these things being introduced into the modern world.
See, that's just silly. We've had worse, much worse, written in ancient text. I mean, according to my father, the Bible is the most violent book he's ever read. And even today on TV and video games, imagery far more demonic and gory than this. And it hasn't made us bloodthirsty, has it? If we can't make art because some people out there get freaked out and take it too seriously, then you just need to examine how seriously you take things and how beneficial it is for you to do that. Either way, it doesn't change the fact this is a strange ceremony, and I just wanted to share it with you guys and see what you guys thought. There are always going to be those out there who take things too seriously. People who see stuff like this and think radically, and there might even be those out there who think I'm doomed just for making a video about this. In the end, I don't know, but at least I do know that if someone tells me I'm going to hell, I can rest easy knowing that I can pick up a few souvenirs in Switzerland on the way.